Hey, John Gilroy here. Today, we're going to talk about how to overcome the challenge of modernizing legacy systems. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Today, we are recording this interview from the AWS-DC Summit. And what we're trying to do is pick out some of the company leaders here and bring them into the studio here and record an interview. So how can they help our federal leaders make progress, overcome problems, and solve really serious agency problems? And our guest today is Badri Sriraman. He's the Senior Vice President for Karsun Solutions, K-A-R-S-U-N, Karsun Solutions. And if you're taking notes, it's K-A-R-S-U-N-LLC.com. And hey, you know, Badri, you're a young guy, I'm an old guy, and kind of the same thing in the federal government. You got young systems, you got old systems. And many federal agencies are in a situation where they have an older system and they have to modernize it because maybe they can't get support for it, or maybe it's vulnerable, or maybe it's not as efficient as the newer systems are. But what I see federal leaders doing is they're resisting change. And so Badri comes in and shakes things up. So Badri, what do you think about this modernizing systems in the federal government? It's really challenging, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you for the interview here. I really appreciate the time. So when you talk about modernization, you talk about resisting change. I feel they're not resisting change, but they have no choice in how their mission is dependent on those systems. They are large systems that's grown over time, and they started to get dependent on it. Large systems tend to not only collect functionality from long ago, which is no longer relevant, technology from long ago, no longer relevant, but more important thing that holds people back is that it collects a lot of user habits with it and how they get stuff done. And that's what holds them back. They just want to hold on to how they do things. And not because they don't want to change, but after a while the cost of change grows, and that's what holds you back. And I'm hoping that when you look at our horizon with I'm in AWS Summit here, and AI seems to be the talk of the town for the last 2 years, and it's probably AI at scale is the talk of the town now, right? And it's going to probably give and make that problem easier to handle.
Well, you know, from my perspective, again, an old guy perspective, you have zero trust, you have move to the cloud, you have artificial intelligence. I think a lot of these topics can come or go, but I think the basic problem is the human sitting behind the desk. And you described it earlier, and I'm going to take a phrase from my friend Rob Jollis, and he uses this great phrase, and you can steal it. It's great. It's called the prison of familiarity.
Interesting.
And he says, you know, this is true in technology, it's true in relationships, it's true with everything. So let's say I have a brother named Cleavon, and we get a fight over a baseball game. And so I stop talking to him over a baseball game. And so why don't you speak to your brother? Well, he doesn't like the Yankees. So, but I haven't spoken to him. Why should I change? But human beings get in these silly habits, don't they? And we've always done it that way. And I'm not inviting him over for Thanksgiving because I haven't. And that seems to, people get human emotions involved and they don't want to change it all, do they?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. They have a sense of identity and how they go about, and that holds them dear to the way they do things. You know, the opportunity exists for us to kind of make changes. Opportunity, but it's an opportunity cost. If you don't change, you lose a lot on the way, right? However, now we are seeing cyber attacks that you talked about, zero trust and so on, is making these weak systems cannon fodder for bad actors. They got to change. It's no longer a choice about enduring pain. It's about existential that you have to change. Now, how do you go about doing that? The O&M probably kind of holds you back because it constitutes 90% sometimes of federal budget. You have no space to modernize or innovate. Now, the only way you can go about eat this elephant, if you will, one bite at a time, optimize a little bit and create some cost savings and use that as a second step to address the biggest pain point. And slowly and surely, one feature at a time, you can peel off the legacy system and eat the elephant, if you will. And it takes years. Now, we can do that faster. And in fact, that's exactly how we've started to think about it with AI in it. And we've used what we came up as GoRedux.ai. And the idea there is to really understand the problem before we actually start peeling off functionality.
Let me pull this out. It's GoRedux.ai. And so it's a tool. So do I go to the 7-Eleven and buy a tool there? Do I get an automotive? So what kind of a tool do you mean? Is it a physical tool? What kind of a tool is it?
It's a software tool. It's really about, if I can draw an analogy here a little bit, it's like a plumber coming and fixing problems, remodeling your home, or construction contractor, right? Now, they bring their own tools. However, in IT, in federal IT today, we only get resources and which are butts on seats, and the tools are with the federal government in terms of technology to use. Now, with AI, it is possible for us, for individuals, to bring their tooling, and that's what this GoRedux.ai is about. That is, our developers, our business analysts, our architects, our testers bring AI-driven ability to understand legacy systems, understand how integrations, how are they put together, right? So that allows them to solve the problem in the right way, and also generate and pull off business rules that are material and into the modern technology faster. That's what this is about.
So I was once down at the Department of Education, sitting there talking to the CIO. We were looking at it's a real nice place right in the river there. It's a great place. And he said, we have a little problem here with an older system. I figured, okay, maybe it's in C or something. And he said, no, it's in B. Wait a fucking minute. It's in B? There we have the prison of familiarity. And people don't want to go in and touch it. It's like having a crotchety old dog, keep feeding every day. You don't want to go near that dog, could bite you. Can that old dog bite you, really? I mean, it seems to be, it's difficult where I'm sure everything's changed there since I've been there, but I'm sure they're putting 80% of the budget in maintenance like other agencies are. But then all of a sudden you have these new cyber attacks and they're making them vulnerable. And this vulnerability is increasing and increasing, and all of a sudden someone's pounding at that door saying, this is getting more and more dangerous, more and more dangerous. You got to change. Maybe that will motivate humans to change, huh?
Actually, you know what? That's awesome point that you make there, because the mission drives people's decision and mindset towards it. They care about delivering things down. Our federal customers, once they see there is an impact to the mission, they bring about change. The leadership moves, the people move with it, right? Now we got to make it easier, and we got to give an opportunity to do that, right? Now, I've seen in many ways, actually, in fact, recently I read about how AI, the models have become a lot more better, right? Now, it can write new code. That's easy to do. But, however, now in the recent 3 months, what I've seen is models are able to, you can give 1,000 lines of code and tell it to how to debug, how to modify that, and it'll do that without breaking things that already is working in that code.
So possibly a tool like yours could use artificial intelligence to examine the old code and come up and say, look, here are the dependencies that you never saw.
That's
because
right.
It was written and rewritten with no notes, and then a developer had notes and no notes. But a human may have a hard time seeing that 1,000-line code, but artificial intelligence can and help make the transition from the legacy system into a newer system.
Absolutely, yes. In fact, it turns out that millions of lines of code that legacy systems have, they're all broken into files, thousands of files, but 90% of those files or 95% of those files are not bigger than 1,000 lines. And that's where AI can help you understand that. Now, that's only half of the story, because it's not in the files individually how it needs to be. It's how they come together. And there's a lot of local context how things work. Now, we have this concept of hyperlocal contextualization. Really, what that means is that how these files put together has, when you peel off a functionality, it's got an upstream and a downstream impact in the business process. That's still in your legacy, right? Now, that is local to the business context or a domain context. When you peel off a functionality, it's got technical dependencies between this system and that system. It's how it's integrated and how is it coupled, right? And that's an architecture local to the architecture. Right? That's architectural context. And then how you go about peeling off has a roadmap and a program execution. It's got a program context. So all of those contexts has to be provided to AI in an intelligent way for you to handle this large ball of mud that legacy system is.
Right. It's interesting that you talk about taking millions of live code and reducing to like local contextualization. And we're in Washington, D.C. I guess I have to quote a local politician, a guy who's here famous a few years back. His name's Tip O'Neill. He said, all politics is local. So, Badri, what you're telling me is that all code is local, John.
Yes, all code and how it works and how it applies to your users and how it brings about the effect that people need to have and mission is accomplished is local. It's got domain, context of the domain. It's got context of the architecture. It's got context of how you go about the behavior comes into existence with multiple components coming together. And that is right now, LLMs have a very small context window. They can't get it. You got to help it. And that's where Redux AI makes a difference.
So let's say 6 months from now, someone's listening to this podcast, and they heard about Badri and Karsun, good reputation, and they're thinking about it, and they get their little notepad out, and they put down positives or negatives. And they put good, bad, good, bad. So what is the worst thing that can happen? What if a federal system does not get modernized? Is it really going to be that vulnerable, or will it just collapse upon itself?
You got to keep it. That's where the O&M budget gets to become 90% because it takes more effort to just keep it running. Right? It's got so many parts that you got to every small change you make, you got to make sure there's no regression to it, and that's cost money. And there's a lot of operation costs involved in maintaining. You're just going to get it's like a boa constrictor. It's going to keep breaking your bones, and so to speak. After a while, you don't have any money. It's just going to make it impossible for you to work because now you're going to have to say
it's almost like a cancer.
Yeah,
it's like a cancer in the back room. It's taking over everything.
Yes. In fact, there's a term in IT for it called technical debt.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice, pleasant little term, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a debt that keeps growing.
It's cancer. It took over the lunchroom. But, Badri, we don't have a lunchroom now. Don't worry, it's cancer. Yeah. We don't have the men's bathrooms gone. Cancer just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, and that's one part of the story. Now, if you have left those, in fact, there's an analogy that one of my colleagues came up with, right? When you open the hood and look at it, it's like you've seen the layers in the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
A million years ago, it was a desert here. 10 million years ago, it was a rainforest.
Yeah.
So you got code in there that was a eye candy popular library 20 years ago, and it's right there. I'm not touching it because I don't know what it's doing, and that code is vulnerable. Yeah. And you're going to have bad actors with AI now going to have feast on it. And you're going to and it's going to help. It's not going to help. It's just going to put our mission in trouble.
Okay, now we talk about Harry Potter. There's a Harry Potter movie where they had this big, huge snake, and it was devouring everything, right?
Right.
And so one of the guys there got the sword of Gryffindor and cut off the head. I remember that scene. It was a great scene. My kids loved it when we saw it. And
legacy systems don't have a head.
But with a legacy system, that's not what you're recommending. You're recommending, okay, the way to make a transition from a legacy system is not to cut the head off the snake, but to make a slow, methodical transition where you understand all your dependencies and slowly make but it has to be methodical, and it can't be delayed. It has to be done sequentially.
Yes. In fact, that sequence really drives the mission needs. Because what gives you the most pain? What is the required experience that users really suffering from? You want to start there, right? And then work backwards into what technical code or functionality and components are actually fulfilling that and not enough, right? And that's why you got to peel and you got to drive business perspective in terms of how you peel that off, and also the technical perspective of what can you peel off first. You can't go and take the lowest level of foundational elements and then say, hey, it's going to be okay, because it's going to break a lot of other things together at the same time. So there's more the structural and behavioral understanding coupled with your business need, which needs to be addressed first, to how technically things are coupled and which order that you got to use. It's not easy, and that's where a tool like our cloud service like Redx Blueprint helps you.
Right, because it's so complicated. It is like the Grand Canyon, and understanding all those layers. And maybe the Go Redux is a product that gives you a telescope looking into the canyon to see what's going on. Because up until now, I mean, let's face it, up until now, it was too much code for humans to absorb.
Yeah,
you could hire 10 students out of college every year, not going to catch up. You know.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things that we discovered when we looked at it that way for one of our customers, it turns out only 10 to 15% of the code is really business rules, where the real meaning is. Everything else is technology, Chrome, putting it together to make it work in mainframe COBOL, because it's and dead code that's no longer in use, but nobody knows it's dead code, right? This, and you want to only extract the core of that domain knowledge from those business rules and put it in the new system. You don't need the rest of it.
You know, it just dawned on me. I was talking about Harry Potter and my kids watching Harry. There could be listeners to this show that don't know what COBOL is. COBOL. It's an old. It's called computer operating system for business or something.
Yeah, it is for business. Yeah,
it's really an old system, and so that's what we're talking. You and I refer. Oh yeah, COBOL. No, what's COBOL? I never heard of that, but it's COBOL. Look it up on Wikipedia, and it just dawned on me that Pareto system. 20% of the value and 80% is dross excess.
Yeah. And all the people who know COBOL are retired. And now,
a lot of my friends.
Yeah. well, you get new friends, AI, which can understand COBOL, and we can help actually unpair that out, peel that out, and get things done.
Well, I'm sure a lot of the programmers retired and said, "Ha ha, Cleavon, your problem," and you figure it out because they didn't document anything. They didn't. They said but they didn't document all stuff.
Yeah. Documentation would be there and it won't even match to what is reality about the system works. So you got two problems: not enough documentation and documentation that's plain wrong.
Okay, so we're going to go from Harry Potter to time machine. So it's almost like AI can be the time machine and go into education and look at their B code and find the dependencies, where it would take humans, I don't know how many hours, 40 hours a week going down there trying to figure it out, but AI can go zoop real fast. And I'm neutral on AI. I think it's real good and real bad, and I think there's some specific applications where you should use it, and some applications maybe you avoid. But this is one. I mean, if it can save humans and save money at the end, why spend all this stupid money on maintaining code from 30 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, the only way you're going to be able to move faster if right now the way it is afforded by AI. And why wouldn't you do it if you're going to get something done half the time, half the cost, and half the effort in getting things done? And 1/4 of your schedule, if you really, otherwise you're going to spend 5 to 6 years transforming a legacy system that's critical to your mission.
Years.
Hundreds of $1 million, and that's where the real pain is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Where are you going to go find the budget when you don't have $100 million in spare to fix a legacy system that's really holding you back?
So if you're working for an agency now, and there is a system that shall be not named, the Voldemort system in the background somewhere, and a lot of them have it. And so the first step is to go to karsun-llc.com and look up this Go Redux to see what it's all about.
Yep.
And maybe contact someone and do a test drive, or what's the next step?
Yeah, well, simple. I mean, you reach out to us, right, and that's where we can talk. I have a clear approach to how we go about doing it, and the first thing is, as I said, about understanding the problem. We have an ability to assess your legacy system. Right, you can engage us to get that assessment done, and then we can pilot a small critical piece of functionality that in doing that pilot, we understand your local context. Remember the hyperlocal contextualization. Understand all that dependencies that matter to you in getting stuff done for you by that system, right? And once you're off, after that, we can help you scale your ability to transform and rewrite the system in double time.
What I have read about is there's innovation in newer type cloud systems, specifically in Kubernetes, where they can put together containers and optimize them so they not only run faster, but they consume less electricity, which means a lot for the Navy.
Yep.
See, a lot of power, reduced electricity. And I just think if you look at the cost for maintaining the system, just from an energy perspective, and maintenance of parts and getting parts for this, it seems like at some time some leader's going to have to make the decision. Okay, it's going to be on my watch. We're going to make this transition, but we're going to go with maybe someone who's been there, done that, and has a T-shirt that says prison of familiarity on it, and try to get you out of the prison, huh?
Yep.
The prison break. It's a jailbreak. Badri and the jailbreak.
I hope so, and I think that is exactly how we want to make it possible for our federal customers to achieve their mission and be effective in doing so, and do so without having to ask for more money.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Right. And if there's a way, and your company has experience with working with budgets as well, this is the big secret, is that you know how to work with budgets, and there's ways to structure an existing budget that may have 80% for O&M. But you can pull out a certain percentage of that and maybe look at a system and maybe a little partial reduction. Okay. Yeah. And then maybe, what's the next logical step? Well, the next logical step is the partial reduction. Well, you're still maintaining the guidelines of the budgetary limitations.
Right.
And still compliant.
Yep.
And no risk. But,
yeah.
but sooner or later, you know, your Honda's going to break down there, Badri. It's got 280,000 miles on it, you know?
Yeah, well,
you're not going to drive that to California.
Well, yeah, that's true. But if you hire us, the way to approach is we can modernize modernize in place as you drive to replace things, and you're on the other side, you get a Tesla.
Yeah. Well, there's some famous guy, he said, well, I'm just going to jump out of the airplane and figure out the parachute as I go on my way down. Yeah, it seems hard to do, but with virtualization and artificial intelligence, you can combine some things and go, well, you know, if I pull out the water pump and put a new water pump, what's going to be the implication of that? And then you do it. And then it's slowly methodical way to rebuild a motor, and it can be done carefully.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good. So we're at the AWS conference. I'm going to spend the next couple days here walking around. Who do you expect to talk to? What do you think is going to be hot down here?
Well, I think it's AI. We spoke on. It's like, have you seen that 2001: Space Odyssey, the Dawn of Man scene, where the apes suddenly wake up to see the monolith?
Yeah.
And that's exactly how people are feeling.
There's a monolith out there.
right. What's this new thing? What can it do for me? That's exactly how I feel when I walk these corridors. I mean, the AI is in the air, and it's like it now. The difference is people are more specific, more action. It's not about what is AI. It's to what can I do with it, and here's what I did work. And that's the kind of stories that it's starting to hear. And it's AI at scale, right? Now, it's no longer about exploiting and exploring. It's about expanding and extracting value from it. And that's what I'm here to hear from AWS.
Yeah, I've got several sessions scheduled this afternoon where Anthropic's going to give a talk this afternoon at 1:30. It's going to be very interesting because people know much about them, but they've just had a new model released last week.
Yep.
So what's this model all about? What does it mean to me? What's it mean to Badri? What does it mean to the federal agency that's got a stinky old system? Maybe Anthropic has a new model that can absorb code. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why we aligned with the AWS Bedrock, because I get the latest model from Anthropic, and I apply that from at the code level as I spoke. Right now, our value comes from the human element. Right, as a system integrator, that's how I can bring technology and the human element of the local context in making transformation possible. I'm really interested to find out more.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll see in the audience. We'll throw tomatoes at the speaker. Well, running out of time here, unfortunately. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Badri Sriraman, Senior Vice President, Karsun Solutions. Thank you, Badri.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.